11:23 hours, Donetsk Oblast, eastern Ukraine. 23 Russian military vehicles raced down Highway M03 toward Avdiivka, carrying ammunition and reinforcements that would determine the next week's fighting. The convoy commander felt safe to air defense systems protected his column. Clear weather meant full visibility, and safety was just 35 minutes away. But Ukrainian reconnaissance had been tracking them for 2 hours, and 45 kilometers away, a Su-25 pilot was already climbing into his cockpit. His mission brief was brutal: 23 vehicles, 4 kilometers of open road, 2 active air defense systems designed specifically to kill aircraft like his. The convoy would reach cover in 35 minutes. After that, those supplies would reinforce Russian positions, and more Ukrainian soldiers would die. The mission was simple: destroy the convoy before it disappears. The problem was staying alive long enough to do it. Ukrainian intelligence had been monitoring Russian communications all morning. They knew the convoy's route, its speed, its destination, and most critically, they knew exactly which air defense systems were protecting it. To Pantsir systems, mobile anti-aircraft platforms designed to shoot down jets and missiles. Each one carried surface-to-air missiles and rapid-fire cannons. On paper, attacking this convoy in broad daylight was suicide. But Ukrainian pilots had learned something over 2 years of war. Russian air defenses had weaknesses, blind spots, split-second gaps in coverage. You just had to be fast enough and crazy enough to exploit them. The Su-25 was loaded with laser-guided missiles and 80 unguided rockets. The plan was simple but terrifying. Fire missiles at the air defense systems first. If they're destroyed, press the attack with rockets. If not, run and hope you survive. The pilot had flown 89 combat missions. He'd been shot at hundreds of times. His aircraft had taken hits before and kept flying. The Su-25 was built like a tank with wings. But this mission was different, attacking in clear daylight against active defenses. No element of surprise, no backup. Just one jet versus an entire convoy. As he lifted off, Ukrainian ground controllers transmitted final updates. Convoy is exposed on open highway. Weather is clear. Window is closing. You have authorization for immediate strike. The pilot pushed the throttle forward and turned east, toward the sound of distant artillery fire. The Su-25 stayed low, barely 150 meters above the ground, using hills and tree lines to stay hidden from Russian radar. At this altitude, he was invisible until the last moment, but it also meant he had zero margin for error. One mistake, one wrong turn, and he'd hit the ground at 700 kilometers per hour. Ukrainian controllers guided him through encrypted radio. Convoy at kilometer 47. Maintaining speed. Air defenses active and scanning. You are clear to proceed. At 8 kilometers from the convoy, the pilot climbed sharply from 150 meters to 1,200 meters in seconds. The sudden climb would light up every Russian radar screen. He'd have maybe 10 seconds before the air defense systems locked onto him. Through his targeting pod, he could see the convoy clearly, a long line of vehicles on the highway. And they're the 2 Pantsir systems, one at the front and one at the rear. Their radar dishes rotating as they search for threats. His targeting computer locked onto the first Pantsir. Range 11 kilometers. The system beeped solid lock. He fired the first laser-guided missile. Without waiting to see if it hit, he immediately locked onto the second Pantsir and fired again. 2 missiles streaking toward the targets. Flight time, 18 seconds. And in those 18 seconds, both Pantsir systems detected the launches and began firing back. The first Pantsir's radar tracked the incoming missile and launched to interceptors. Its automated cannons also opened fire, creating a wall of exploding shells. But the Ukrainian pilot had already released countermeasures, clouds of aluminum chaff that created false radar signals bigger than his actual jet. The Pantsir's counter missiles locked onto the chaff and exploded harmlessly. The Ukrainian missile, guided by an invisible laser beam, ignored all countermeasures. It struck the Pantsir's radar array with 90 kilograms of high explosive. The radar dish shattered, electronics sparked and died. The system went from deadly threat to useless scrap metal in less than a second. The second Pantsir had 3 extra seconds of warning. The crew fired for missiles and filled the sky with cannon fire. One of their rounds clipped the incoming missile's stabilizer fin, causing it to wobble, but laser guidance compensated for the damage. The missile slammed into the Pantsir's chassis, detonating between the missile tubes and crew compartment. The vehicle didn't explode, it simply stopped working. Smoke poured from its electronics as the crew scrambled to evacuate. Both air defense systems neutralized in 20 seconds. The convoy was now defenseless. The pilot didn't hesitate. He pulled up again, climbing to 1,800 meters for a rocket attack run. Russian officers on the ground were screaming into radios for help, but the nearest air defense battery was too far away to engage. At 1,800 meters and 8 kilometers from the convoy, the pilot armed his rocket pods, 80 unguided rockets. Each one carried enough explosive to destroy a vehicle or kill everyone in a 10-meter radius. He fired .20 rockets left the pods into seconds, trailing white smoke, then another 20, and another. The targeting computer spread the impacts along the convoy's entire length. From the ground, it looked like the sky had caught fire. 80 white smoke trails arcing downward, each one carrying death. The rockets struck in waves. A fuel truck erupted into a massive fireball that engulfed 3 nearby vehicles. An ammunition carrier took a direct hit. The explosion was so huge it shattered windows in villages. 5 kilometers away, more rockets hammered the highway. Infantry fighting vehicles flipped from near-miss impacts. Transport trucks disintegrated. A command vehicle's antenna rays melted from the heat of nearby explosions. Russian soldiers abandoned their vehicles and ran for ditches, but rockets were still falling. The 4-kilometer highway became a corridor of fire, smoke, and twisted metal. The pilot didn't watch the full devastation. He was already diving back toward low altitude, deploying more countermeasures, because now every Russian unit within 30 kilometers knew exactly where he was, and they all wanted him dead. Warning tones screamed in the pilot's headset. Multiple radar locks. Missile launches detected. A Tor missile system 22 kilometers away had achieved lock and fired 2 missiles. Mach to point 8. Closing fast. The pilot dove hard 1,800 meters down to 100 meters in seconds. G-forces crushed him into his seat, but the Su-25 held together. At 100 meters altitude, racing at maximum speed, he used terrain to break radar locks. But Russian crews had learned from previous engagements. A Tor crew had positioned on high ground, giving them line of sight over the terrain. 2 missiles launched. Time to impact, 14 seconds. The pilot's hands moved automatically. Chaff, flares, electronic jamming, all deployed simultaneously. His jamming pod created false radar returns. Flares burned hotter than his engines. The first missile tracked a flare and self-destructed. The second lost lock in the chaff cloud, but continued on inertial guidance, passing to 100 meters behind the Su-25 before detonating. Shrapnel tore into the aircraft's tail. Warning lights flashed. Hydraulic pressure dropping. Control surfaces damaged. The jet shuddered violently but stayed airborne. The pilot kept flying low, weaving through valleys, staying under 150 meters. Behind him, Russian missiles were exploding where he'd been seconds ago, not where he was now. 15 minutes after the attack began, he crossed back into Ukrainian airspace. Fuel was low but sufficient. The aircraft was damaged. Condor to 1. Good hits confirmed. Multiple vehicles destroyed. RTB when ready, returned to base. He'd survived. Ukrainian drones circled over the convoy wreckage, streaming video back to command centers. 23 vehicles. 9 were completely destroyed, burning wrecks that would never move again. 8 more were damaged and immobilized. 6 were abandoned intact but trapped behind debris and craters. The fuel truck fire burned for 3 hours, sending black smoke high into the sky. The ammunition explosion had cratered the highway. The road was completely blocked. Russian recovery teams arrived hours later with heavy equipment, working frantically to salvage what they could before Ukrainian artillery found them. They managed to recover for damaged vehicles before retreating. The rest were to destroyed or to exposed. The convoy that was supposed to deliver critical supplies to Avdiivka never arrived. Russian units went another week without ammunition and reinforcements. Some withdrew, some surrendered. The defensive line weakened. 1 jet, 1 pilot, 60 seconds over target, 2 missiles and 80 rockets. The Su-25 landed at its forward airbase with 17 shrapnel holes in the tail, degraded hydraulics, and minor electrical damage. Ground crews had it repaired and flying again in 2 days. The pilot flew his next mission 48 hours later. This is what modern warfare looks like when you're fighting for survival. Ukrainian Su-25s are Soviet-era jets, subsonic, limited countermeasures, no stealth. On paper, they shouldn't survive in contested airspace against modern air defenses. But Ukrainian pilots have adapted. They've studied every Russian air defense system, learning engagement ranges, reaction times, blind spots. They fly missions that NATO pilots would consider suicidal. 100-meter altitude, pop-up attacks from terrain cover, diving through missile engagement zones. And they're surviving. Not because their equipment is better, it's not. Not because they have technological superiority, they don't. They're surviving because they're fighting for their homes, because impossible becomes achievable when your family's survival depends on it, because determination and skill can overcome equipment advantages. This convoy strike proved something Russian commanders are still struggling to accept in this war. Better technology doesn't guarantee victory. The side that fights smarter, adapts faster, and takes calculated risks wins. Russian forces had superior air defenses, more equipment, better positioning. They still lost because the Ukrainian pilot knew his aircraft's capabilities better than Russian crews knew their system's limitations, because Ukrainian intelligence provided perfect targeting, because the mission planning was flawless, and because when defending your homeland from invasion, you find ways to win that military doctrine says are impossible. Somewhere over eastern Ukraine today, another Su-25 is flying another mission against overwhelming odds. The pilot knows the risks, knows that Russian air defenses are improving, learning from every engagement. He's flying anyway, because that's reality when you're fighting for survival. Safe becomes irrelevant. Impossible becomes just another mission brief. And aircraft that should be shot down keep flying, keep striking, keep winning. Russian convoys keep moving. Ukrainian jets keep hunting them. The war continues. But one thing is absolutely clear. Never underestimate pilots fighting for their homes. They'll penetrate defenses designed to stop them. They'll complete missions that should kill them. And they'll keep flying until the job is done. The convoy thought it was safe in broad daylight with their defense coverage. It was wrong.